how do we move from judging others to loving others? Hey friends, this is Music and Mind, and today we're going to be talking about loving others instead of judging others. And I think that this is such a big problem in our world today. We go out to the grocery store and we see someone that we've never met before, but already in our heads, just by their outward appearance, we make assumptions and judgments and stereotypes about them. And I find this to be a problem. I was thinking about God's commands the other day, and I was thinking if we had to sum up God's commands into one word, I think that it would be love. And so when we are judging others instead of loving others, this is a problem. And I have seen a drastic change in how I interact and look at other people just in like the past 2 or 3 years. And so today I want to share with you 2 things that we can remember before we judge someone else. So the first thing that I try to do before judging someone is remembering that everyone has a story. And this is a process, but I start with thinking about people's stories. And so just an example of this, my freshman year of college, one of my friends told me that I really need to start hanging out with this guy. And when I met him, I was like, there is no way we would get along, because I just kind of perceived this sporty, that he was a little jock or something. And in high school, I was the band geek, and you probably know that band geek and jock don't really get together too well. But the funny thing is that this very guy that I had this initial wall up against, he ended up being in my wedding 4 years later. I mean, how cool is that? And so that is just because I got to know him, and I learned that our stories were very, very similar, and we were able to connect on that. And so through that, nowadays, when I meet someone new or I see someone that I have an initial kind of judgment against, I think about their story. I think about, what if they have struggled with some of the same things I have struggled with? Or maybe they don't know God just like I didn't know God. And right then, when I think that thought of them not knowing Christ, immediately I feel compassion towards them, and that compassion leads me to love them because I want them to know God. I want them to have a relationship with Christ. And that is how thinking about their story and thinking about them not knowing Christ kind of moves me from judging them initially to loving them. So remember that everyone has a story, but also I try to remember that others don't live by my standards. As people and as humans, we all have these values or things that we perceive to be right and wrong. And as a Christian, I have a full book on things that are right and wrong, and these are God's standards. And because I know God and I follow Jesus Christ, I live by those standards. But if I meet someone and they do not know God and they do not know Christ, then I should not judge them based on God's standards, because they do not know God, therefore they don't know God's standards. And just a real world example of this would be, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, my now wife, we were sitting at lunch one day and she asked me to go to a sorority dance with her. And at this point in my life, I just thought that sororities and fraternities you couldn't associate with them because that was sin. They sinned. That as a Christian, you couldn't be around that. And it's crazy that was just like 2 or 3 years ago in my life. But now I have just kind of relaxed to know that not everyone knows God. Not everyone has experienced God like I have. And so now I don't judge people by the standards that God holds against me, but rather when I meet someone and they're cussing or they're talking about things they shouldn't be talking about, and I just perceive, this like, this is not really good. Immediately in my mind, I remember that they don't live by my standards, but rather I just try to think, if you only knew the God I knew. And immediately in that, I am filled with joy and love and compassion for them, because I want them to know the God I know. And so I move from judging them based on their actions to loving them based on the way God has taught me to love them. So how do we move from judging others to loving others? Two things that I try to remember are that everyone has a story and that others don't live by my standards. When your initial thought is to judge someone, I want to encourage you to think about the person and not about the outward shell that is containing that person. I hope that you were encouraged by today's worship vlog. These worship vlogs are all about talking about God and talking about life. Hey, I love you guys and I hope you have a great day. Peace out.